Hi everybody, coming to you from Live Cash Crusher. Wanted to introduce a project I've been working on that I've been using personally. It's the Live Cash Crusher Poker Coach AI built on ChatGPT. If you're familiar with poker coaching and analysis, a lot of guys and gals tend to gain a lot of insight and improve their game by listening to people like Bart Hanson and other coaches on YouTube to help improve their game. What I've always wanted was access to one of these guys, and that's hard to do and expensive. So I created my own AI. It's taken me a few months. It's been trained only for cash games, and it's based on a lot of information available, not just from poker coaches, but a lot of source material that I've trained the AI on, and I think it works really, really well. And today, I wanted to give you a demonstration of this AI and kind of do a Pepsi challenge against the man himself, Bart Hanson, on one of his videos. Uh, The way it works is you go into ChatGPT and you load your custom GPT, and I will provide a link for it. That custom GPT is called Live Cash Crusher Poker Coach. And when you come in here, you have a few prompts up front. Of course, you can talk about any subject relating to poker, specifically cash games, with this AI. But to get you started and guided through hand analysis, I have created some prompts here in multiple different languages. They're the same. If you pick any of these languages, it'll communicate and respond back to you in that same language to make it a little easier for non-English native speakers. But right here, it says, I want to analyze a poker hand, guide me. So we're going to click on that, and it's going to come back with some guidance on how to get started. It says, let's get started with your hand analysis. First, tell me about the poker hand you're looking to review. Please include as many details as possible, such as position and stack sizes, pre-flop action, flop and turn and river, and player reads or notes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it step by step. I'm going to play a video from Bart Hanson's Crush Live Poker channel, and I'm going to input that information into the AI to see what are the recommendations of this custom GPT versus what Bart says. Here's the video. It has recently come out about 2 days ago. This is as of October 27th, 2024. And the title is Pocket Queens in a 4-bet pot. Can you fold this? Let's go ahead and listen in and see what Bart says.
In the description. Hello, John. You're up last.
Hi, Bart. Thanks for having me.
How's it going? Where are you calling out of?
I am in San Francisco, California.
Okay. Is this at like Lucky Chances or something? Or
This was at Lucky Chances, yes.
and what's the size of the game?
This is a 5, 10, 20
They play that big there, Lucky Chances?
once a week.
Oh, okay. So 5, 10, 20. And what's the setup? Is it uncapped or?
It's uncapped.
All right. So 5, 10, 20 and Lucky Chances. Biggest game, one time per week. Whether that brings in like the best players in the area, I don't know. I mean, you've got Matrix and you've got Bay 101, which are in San Jose. Do you see people like come up to play in this game like special?
Yes, I see some of the same people.
Okay. And how deep are you?
I'm 5,650 effective. I cover the table. I have about 11,000.
5,650 effective. You have 11,000. How much did you buy in for the game for?
7.5.
Okay, so you like to cover the table. Okay. All right, start us off.
Sure. So the villain in this hand, he opens to 60 in middle position.
All right, so MP 260, is that the standard open size?
Yeah, this is the standard at this game.
Okay.
And the next two players in the low jack and the hijack call to 60.
Low jack.
Okay, so we have a game that happens once a week. It's 5, 10, 20. Effective size is the hero with 5650 in his stack, and middle position opens to 60. So I put that in here. The game is 5, 10, 20 on cap. Happens once a week. Hero is effective with 5650. Oh, I've already put that in there. Villain in the middle position opens for 60 and low jack and hijack call. And low jack and hijack call.
Jack and hijack call. Okay.
I'm in the small blind and I have Queen of Hearts and Queen of Clubs.
Hero is small blind with Queen of Hearts and Queen of Clubs.
Queen of hearts, queen of clubs. Okay.
Yeah. I 3-bet to 320.
So 3-bet to 320, which is 4x. Just
Hero 3 bets to 320. All right. So at this point, I'm just gonna, well, should we let the video go
under
longer?
4x plus the dead money. So 4x plus the dead money or to the dead calls would be what, 360? So you want a little bit less than that to 320. Okay.
And then the original opener from middle position, he 4-bet me to 850.
850.
Okay, that's interesting. Uh, let's see. 4 bets to 850.
And then you guys folded.
Yep, the other two guys folded, and I ended up calling.
So
All right, let's stop there. Low jack and hijack fold, and hero calls. Let's stop there and see what it gives us. All right, it says great setup so far. Thanks for the details. Here's our first key points of analysis. You're facing a 4-bet in an uncapped 5, 10, 20. It's not facing a 4-bet, is it? Yeah, it is facing a 4-bet. You're facing a 4-bet on a 5, 10, 20 uncapped game with deep stacks with queens in the small blind. You're out of position and will be playing against a player who could be quite strong. This spot typically involves considering villains' likely 4-bet ranges, your equity against it, and whether you prefer to call or a 5-bet jam given the stack sizes and implied odds. Quick points to consider: villain's range. Given your 4-bet from the middle position, they could be on hands like aces, kings, ace king, or possibly ace queen suited, jacks, and tens. Some players might also throw in occasional suited connectors, but that's less common in 4-bet pots. Your stack depth with 5650 effective, you have room to maneuver, which can make calling attractive if villain's range includes hands you dominate, or you might fold to a 5-bet with a less than, or if they might fold to a 5-bet with less than aces or kings. My question for you is, this is very cool because the AI, to clarify its ability to give you good advice, is going to ask you questions. My question for you is, what's your read on the villain? Are they generally aggressive, capable of 4-betting light, or are they typically more conservative and like to be very strong in this spot? All right, let's see where the conversation with Bart goes, and we'll input those uh, information into the AI.
MP to 850. The other two guys fold out. It's a 4-bet pot. You're playing fairly deep. I mean, it's what, 300, just under 300 big blinds. I mean, I think, sure, this would be a call like in most types of setups with queen queen. Couple comments here is that if the MP player is aware or good or sort of knows how to play, he's going to be wider with a 4-bet here than what would have been just him opening and you 3-betting. And that's because of the people that have called to his left. So you always have to keep that in mind, that this might be wider than your typical four bet ish type of range. He's incentivized to four bet to drive those people out. Like if he had ace five suited, or even like ace queen or something like that, right? He wants to drive those other people out and get it heads up. Hero calls. Now, if you're typically playing in this game, I don't know how often this particular setup happens, but like, would you have a five bet range here?
You know,
So before we get on into the rest of it, that's a very interesting comment of Bart's analysis, saying that uh, given that uh, the hijack and the low jack limped in, the four bet range of the villain could be wider. Um, let's ask the AI what he thinks. What do you think? How wide do you think is the four bet range of the villain? It's a good question. It says in a 5, 10, 20 uncapped game, especially when playing deep stack, the 4 bet range from the middle position can vary widely based on the player type. However, given the estimation of a couple of types of villain, conservative value oriented player, if the villain is conservative and value heavy on a 4 bet pot, they're likely four betting a tight range, which would include aces, kings, ace, king, both suited and offsuit, sometimes queens. Some conservative players won't even bet queens deep stack unless they are extremely comfortable. Very few bluffs relying on ace queen suited. Rarely, they might add ace queen suited or jacks as a 4 bet fold if they view you as someone who bet 3 bets often. In this case, you're likely going up against a strong range with a few hands you dominate. Aggressive or balanced 4 better. If the villain is capable of 4 betting light or balancing their range, they might be aiming to pressure you given the stack depth and your out of position status. In this case, they might include hands like aces, kings, ace, king, both suited and offsuit, and queens, occasionally bluff, light hands like ace, queen suited, jacks, possibly even suited connectors like ace 5, king 10. If they're a more advanced player who can use position and stack leverage. Against this range, queens has better equity since it performs well against ace king jacks and doesn't fare too poorly against ace queen. Likely range estimate, most players in a 5, 10, 20 game will lean conservative, so their range is probably something like value oriented range, like aces, kings, ace, king, maybe some queens, occasional bluffs, depending on the reads, jacks, ace, queen, ace 5 suited, king 10 suited for balance. Recommendation given your deep stack, calling queens with a to keep the villain's range wide and see the flop seems sounds. Recommend, especially with villain's potential of mix of strong hands and some high equity holdings like ace king. That's interesting. Before we go on, let's ask, does the factor of two limpers before me affect the villain's 4 bet range? Which is what Bart was trying to communicate, that his 4 bet range might be much wider given that there are 4 betters. And the AI says, yes, absolutely. The two limpers can significantly influence the 4 bet range of the villain, often making it more value heavy and polarized rather than balanced with many bluffs. Here's the extra point. The AI is actually taking a contradictory position to Bart. I feel that it's saying that it's going to tighten up the AI, the villain's range. How the limp impacts villain's 4-bet stronger value range, since there are two players who have already shown some interest by calling the raise. Villain is aware that the additional aggression like 4-bet needs to be even stronger to isolate to justify the risk. Decreased bluff frequency with extra players in the hand. Villain is likely to tighten up on bluff hands like ace-5 suited or suited connectors. Bluffs become riskier with more players potentially calling or reacting strongly to an aggression, which means villain will usually cut out a lot of speculative hands. Higher weight on premium hands, the 4-bet is more likely to lean toward a premium hand like aces, kings, ace king, and sometimes queens. Many players would expect to need a very strong hand to justify this move, with multiple players already involved, especially in deep stacked setting. Revised likely 4-bet range with two limpers. I would narrow the villain's range to something like premium hands, occasional queens, and reduced bluffs. Okay, so sort of a contradictory position from villain to Bart's analysis.
Before where I 5-bet aces and everyone folded, so I think I might just not do that.
You feel I bet folded, yeah, everyone folded. Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. Once you get past the 4-bet in live poker, it starts to get kind of strange. It's very hard to balance a 5-bet range that's not just all aces. Maybe sometimes that doesn't matter. But anyways, 4-bet pot, it looks like the pot is like 1820 plus, I guess, the blind. 18 blind, yeah, 1850 plus the blinds, and you're out of position in the small blind with queen, queen. Okay, on to the flop.
Yeah, so the flop is 9 of clubs, 2 of hearts, 5 of clubs.
9 of clubs, 2 of hearts, 5 of clubs. So you get a ragged board here. You have the queen of clubs in your hand too.
Yes.
Okay.
I check out of position, and the villain checks back.
Okay, so it goes check, check. And it remains 1850. That's interesting because, I mean, if I put myself,
All right, so the flop is 9 of clubs, 2 of hearts, 5 of clubs, and it goes check, check. Flop comes 9 of clubs, 2 of hearts, and 5 of clubs, and the action goes check, check. Is that correct? Yes. All right. Let's see what the AI says. AI says, interesting. Same thing as Bart. Flop check back from villain tells us a few things. Interpreting villain's check back, controlling play with a strong hand. Villain may be keeping the pot manageable with hands like ace king, especially without clubs, or queens if they hold it. Given how dry the board is with aces or kings, some players might check back here for pot control and deception, especially with deeper stack, and given that you might have some strong check raise hands. Less likely to hold draws with 9 of clubs, 2 of hearts, 5 of clubs board. There are some draws possible, but villains check back lowers the possibility that they hold a hand like ace king, ace queen of clubs, or another flush draw, as these hands would likely c-bet to protect equity and to leverage their drawing potential. Weaker or medium strength hands, villain could also have jacks, tens, hands that are strong enough to call, but not want to face a check raise in such a bloated pot. Here's options and the next steps. You can turn probe for turn probe potential. Depending on the turn card, you may have the opportunity to lead small if the villain shows continued passivity, especially if the turn is blank, or a low card that doesn't complete any draws. Second option is consider delayed c-bet potential. Be prepared for villain to bet on later streets if they are slow playing aces, kings, or even a cautious queen that may delay their c-bet here. That may delay their c-bet here to appear weaker and induce a call. The question that the AI proposes, my question to you, do you want to play aggressively if the turn is a low blank, or are you inclined to play more passively to manage the pot? Let's see what the caller says.
I mean, this is a board that should almost always be c-bet, right? It's a 4-bet pot. It's one of these texture. Again, you're supposed to be doing a lot of c-betting anyways in 4-bet pots. You would think it's almost like 100% type of bet for kind of small sizing. He doesn't need to really build the pot up. So it's a little interesting that it goes check, check. And then, you don't I mean, I guess with aces, sometimes like the thing with aces, if you're your opponent, is not only do you not need protection with aces on boards like this, I suppose you could make a case that it cuts down on the you having ace high calls that you would make, like ace high with 2 overcards if your opponent has 2 aces. Whereas with kings, you can call with a lot of ace highs. I mean, you would. I would. It's still a little strange right off the bat that he's not betting, don't you think?
Yeah, I felt weird about that.
Yeah. All right. So 1850 to the turn.
Yeah, so the turn is the five of spades, and I decided to bet here. I bet really small. I bet 500.
So did you consider checking because you thought this was so strange, anyways?
I did not consider checking. I thought my thought process was I should start betting in case he has a flush draw or ace king that didn't bet.
Mhm.
But yeah, maybe that was flawed. I decided to just lead.
No, it's one of these things where when something very, very unexpected happens, which I think the flop check back here is somewhat unexpected. Some people are saying he might have a lot of ace five suited, which would make trip fives, but I mean, this is less of a chance that comes out when the five comes. When something unexpected happens here on the flop, sometimes on the turn you're like, what is going on here? I mean, obviously, like if you check the turn and went check check, then you'd obviously have a very easy river value bet here. I'm not saying that I would check the turn. I just wondered if it sort of crossed your mind. Now your sizing here is such that it's very small. And I guess my question would be, could you bet if he that type of range that you were talking about that he didn't bet? I don't know why he wouldn't necessarily bet a flush draw on a 4-bet pot though, even for small if you're supposed to be betting anything anyways. But a flush draw or ace king, wouldn't those hands call a little bit of a larger bet on the turn?
Yeah, maybe they would.
Okay. Hero bet's 500 and
Yeah. To my surprise, the villain raised me to 1200.
All right. So far, Bart seems to think that the bet on the turn could be a little larger to get value from um, hands like Ace King, but nevertheless, the hero here bets 500, bets small, as the AI would recommend to do. Uh, and the middle position, the villain raises to 1200. Let's put that in and see what the AI says. All right, turn is a 5 of spades, and the hero bets 500, and the villain raises to 1200.
it's interesting.
All right, let's see what the AI says about that before we put any more information in there. All right, the AI says the turn brings in the 5 of spades, pairing the board and adding another level of complexity to this hand. When you lead out for 500 bet into the pot, that is now about 1780. Pot's actually a little bit more than that given the blinds, and the villain raises to 1200. This is interesting and raises several questions about their likely holdings. Strength and reevaluation. And villains raise after the turn shows strength, but it could mean different things depending on their hand and overall tendencies. With the paired board, they may now be representing aces or kings. These hands make sense, particularly in a check back, with a check back on the flop for pot control. Playing queens cautiously if the villain has queens, they might raise for protection against flush draws or to test the waters. However, many players would just call here with queens. Raising is semi-bluff. If the villain holds ace-king or ace-queen of clubs, this could be a delayed attempt to get you to fold medium-strength hands such as tens or jacks, though this move is less likely to on a paired board without a strong read. Occasionally holding 5x hands, although unlikely, the pre-flop and the flop action and aggressive villain might sometimes show up with 5x, which could have trips here. Bluffing frequency. If the villain has ace-king without any clubs, they might be bluff raising to represent strength, since their hand has limited showdown value, especially if they perceive that you could fold hands like jacks or queens. Your options here is to call or consider a 3-bet rare. Calling here keeps the villain's range wider and allows you to evaluate the river, since the villain's check back on the flop reduces the likelihood of sets like nines and paired boards. And the paired board decreases combo possibilities like for trips. Calling makes sense to control the pot size and keep bluffs or weaker value hands in the range. 3-betting the turn would polarize your range and often only get called by aces, kings, or very rare ace fives. Given the turn raise from the villain, a 3-bet here might not maximize value, as it's likely only stronger hands or bluffs remain in the villain's range. Recommendation. In this spot, calling seems to be the best line, keeping the pot manageable while assessing villain's next move. This line allows you to gauge villain's river action and still leverage your position. You also keep some of villain's bluffs and weaker value raises in, increasing the likelihood of extracting value on the river if they are bluffing or overplaying medium hands. Let's proceed with the call unless you're considering a different action. What's your thoughts? Well, clearly the AI recommends a call here. Let's see what the hero does.
So hero bets 500 in a 4-bet pot, very small. MP now starts to raise to 1200, which you're like, okay, what is this? And normally you'd think, did this guy check back aces here? Or did he check back kings? Does he have a 5? Does he have ace 5 suited, that primary bluff type of holding here? And now he's raising. But then, but now it's like the pot's what, 2350? It's 35 and change, 700 for you to call. You're getting 5 to 1 here. It's really, I mean, you can't just fold now, right? I mean, that would seem kind of ludicrous. And then what is the MP? Does the MP have any? What does he have any stop raises? Like a raise with like tens or jacks or something, and then he's gonna check it behind. I mean, I would call for sure. I don't know what's going on here, to be honest with you, John. You might not have known either, but
I did end up calling because it was just 700 more in the pot size.
some hero calls. Yeah,
Yeah, the pot is 4250 now.
yeah, 4250, and you guys have what, like 36 and change left or something?
Yep. Yep. So the river is the 3 of clubs.
The 3 of clubs. So
All right, so the hero elects to call, as the AI and Bart recommend. Hero calls, and the river is 3 of clubs. 3 of clubs.
the front door comes in. Ace 4 comes in. Okay. I assume you check.
I check, and then villain jams. 3600.
For 3.
All right, interesting. So, three clubs, hero checks, and wheel and jams. Let's see what our coach says. With the three of clubs on the river, you've checked, and now the villain pushes all in, putting the hero to the test for their remaining stack. This river jam is a strong move, especially given that the pot size and the board texture, and it heavily narrows the villain's range. Let's break down the villain's possible hands and assess the hero's options. Value hands, aces or kings, occasional ace 5, and queens, bluff hands, miss flush draw. Hero's decision. Let's skip over that part and just go to the decision. I don't want to make this video too long. Given the deep stack nature of this spot, you're facing a polarized range here, either strong value hand or miss draw bluff. Calling here is only profitable if the villain's bluff frequency is high enough, but many players at these stakes in live setting tend to be value heavy. In this kind of line, especially with all-in river shove, given the turn action, and now the river shove, aces, kings, or an unlikely ace 5 are the most probable holdings, each of which has queens beat. Recommendation, clearly, our coach here recommends fold. Let's see what Bart has to say.
3,600. So do we know it? I mean, does your combo tell us necessarily anything? Well, I mean, you've got a club in your hand, which means that if you were sort of trying to choose like what combo of queens to call with, you would want to have a club in your hand just because it makes it less likely that your opponent has a flush, a little bit less likely in a given spot. You're losing to ace 5. If he had like aces with the ace of clubs, he could play it this way. And then what are the bluffs? So the thing that comes out at like, so it's just kind of weird. Like ace king, like with the ace of clubs, does that hand need to start raising turn? Or does it have enough showdown value to just call? I mean, that was one of the things that actually crossed my mind that I didn't say on the turn was like, could it ever be like some sort of like, it's just weird though, because like if you're not folding queens, what's the point of him raising ace king? Unless he was just going to jam like any river. Like, has anybody seen somebody play ace king this way where they raise it up on the turn, blocking aces and kings, and they're trying to rep like they have aces and kings, and they play it like a like kind of like a semi bluff. He's got the ace of clubs, and now he jams. I mean, if he played ace king with the ace of clubs this way, I suppose the river would be a jam. I mean, I 3-bet bluffed ace king against a check raise on Hustler Casino Live a couple couple weeks ago. It did not work. I wish I had been a little bit deeper. Uh, and then what else? Mixing 9-9. I don't know, man. I my gut is that I would probably overfold here a little bit, but it is certainly bizarre. You're getting what 7,800 for 3,600. Let me ask you this question about this game that it goes once a week. Is there a lot of like big time like bluffs? Is there a lot of bluffing that goes on in this game? You know, as well. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I don't see it get shown down very often. I've seen one particular player make the most bluffs, and that was not this player. This player I've only seen all in one time before, and it was for a smaller amount.
Uh, I'd have to have like a lot of respect for this guy to even to probably consider like possibly calling. And what I mean by that is that I'd have to think that his game was at a high enough level where he's somehow finding the bluffs that he should find here, or he's capable of putting this amount of money in as a bluff. Because the whole thing is kind of strange, right? It's somewhat non-standard. Like it's not like he went bet all in. And, oh, now you're facing a triple barrel. He checked back the flop and then he raised the turn. How often do you see that on a board like this in a 4-bet pot where the ranges should be pretty condensed? I can't remember the last time I've seen it. So it's hard to like look back and think like, what is this necessarily? So a lot of times you might just sort of default to being like, wow, this guy's putting a lot of money here.
All right. Well, clearly, Bart also thinks there's not a whole lot of bluffs going on here, and the right action is fold. So, uh, he seems to agree with our AI recommendation. Now, what I like to do is ask the AI a simple question: how could uh, hero play better? Very simply. Yeah, basically the AI saying that option, a couple of options you had, pre-flop, 5 bet, um, or just fold. The flop decision, considering the leading, consider leading or check raising small, and the turn decision, check call instead of leading. We didn't put that in there on the river. The hero folded. And let's see what our decision is thought of by the AI. It's a good laydown, minimize losses. All right. So that's a little comparison between Bart Hanson, one of the leading hand reviewers on the internet, on YouTube, and this AI. Obviously, there are minor differences. Not every analysis is going to be the same between even the best poker players, but I think this AI does a great job. And if you are interested to get your hand on it, send me a message in the link below. Subscribe to the channel, watch our videos. There'll be more demonstrations and more instructions about this AI and others coming in the future. If you want to get your hands on this, it's completely free. Send me a message on Telegram and I'll be happy to send it to you so you can always have a coach in your pocket. Thank you and bye-bye.